Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Menino from Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Michael McCahey. McCahey. I pronounced that incorrectly. I'm sorry about that. I just met him recently. He's my new best friend. This guy is a kindred spirit. I'm gonna let you know, but he's an Olympic champion. He's a runner that wins a lot. He's done some crazy cool stuff. So I'd like to have him introduce himself. And you're in Columbia, South Carolina?
Yes.
Cool. Then I just moved
I'm in
here about
Lexington, South Carolina.
Lexington, yeah, right next door.
I moved from Chicago last year.
Yeah. How do you like it out here?
Oh, I'm loving it. The weather's fantastic. You know, I spent a lot of years in the snow and the cold, so now we've got the beautiful Lake Murray and year-round golf. It's terrific.
Yeah, I love it too. Could you do me a favor? I know you're retired now, but you've had a very interesting life. Could you tell me briefly about how you started, how you got into fencing, how you got into running, and in that process, the businesses you were working with and how those kind of related?
Well, sure. Just to set the record straight, I'm an Olympian. I'm not an Olympic champion.
Okay.
I reserve that for the people that won the medals. So I did. It was not on the podium at the Olympic Games, but I actually was born and raised in Chicago on the North Shore in a suburb called Winnetka, and come from a family of 6 kids and very competitive. My father loved the spirit of competition. He was a competitor as well, and so he was always pushing us to get the best of ourselves and in sport. And I was actually a uncoordinated run to the litter type of person. I considered myself growing up, and so my father was desperately trying to get me to learn coordination in sports, and he put me in a sports program in Chicago where you try lots of different sports, and they train you to train you on coordination and sportsmanship and that sort of thing. And fencing was one of the rotational sports, and so I say the sport found me. I fell to it very quickly and started working at it. I was about 8 years old at the time. And when I was 10, I went to a competition. And back then they didn't have age group. They just had senior and junior. So I'm 10 years old fencing guys that are 19 and 20. And
really?
Yeah. And I went there and I was eliminated very quickly in the first preliminary round. And as I was packing up my stuff, a guy named Alan January came over and asked me about, what I thought of fencing. And he said, I saw something in you out there. I'd like to coach you. And I looked at him and said, who were you watching? I scored 2 touchdowns.
Who were you watching? Yeah, everybody doesn't do very good.
5 bouts. It was terrible. But he saw something.
But he saw something in you. He saw your talent. And
he talked to my mom, and my mother and father agreed if I would go full steam at it. And so we hired him as a coach. And he made a promise to me when I was 10 years old that if I did everything he said and the way he said it, I would be a national champion by the time I graduated from high school. And so I went to work.
At 10?
At 10, yeah. And I started working hard at it. And, I did not have very good success at the beginning. And I think that's important to know because it's kind of a thing about perseverance in life, right? You always can get up. You can learn a lot by falling down. And you just have to keep trying. And something happened when I was a junior. I wasn't doing all that well. And I was very frustrated. And I said, I want to quit. So instead of going to practice, my high school practice, I came home and I was sitting on the couch and my father came in and he said, what are you doing here? You're always at practice. And I said, Dad, it just got too hard. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to take some time off. And I think I may give it up. And he sat down next to me and he said, okay, I trust in you, and I believe that you've got something here that you're not seeing in yourself. So I want you to remember this. For every day that you're sitting at home, relaxing, not working, there's a guy who's at the gym, and he probably got there early, and he competed all during his practice as hard as he could, and he probably stayed afterwards for a couple of reps, and then went home and thought about what he was going to do the next day to improve himself. And when you decide to go back to competition, that's the guy you're going to face. You remember that. And I thought, oh my, I'm behind. What am I going to do? And I made a decision at that moment that I was going to become that guy. I was going to be the guy that was in better shape than everyone else, knew more about his competitors than anybody else, worked harder than anybody else, with determination. And it changed my life. Everything happened from there. My grades went up in school because I was concentrating and setting this plan in place. And I started winning. And I won the state championships. First trophy I ever won. First final I ever made. And I won the state championships as a junior, then again as a senior, and then that year I won the national title. So the thing that coach
the coach said you're
years ago at 10 years old came true that year. And of course that opened up, colleges came running after me, and it opened up a lot of things. And I ended up at the University of Notre Dame and was All-American there, 2-time NCAA championship teams. And then on to New York to train with a coach there. And when I graduated from college, I went to New York to train as a fencer and make the Olympic team, but I needed to work, right? And so I went to work for Hilton Hotels Corporation. And because I'm a pretty type A personality, they put me in sales. And I started with just selling meeting space. I'd go up and down the streets of New York, walk in offices and try to convince them to have their next meeting at our hotel. And I grew that until I became the national sales director for meetings and conventions for Hilton out of New York. And in 1980, I guess in 86, some friends of mine came to me and said, hey, we started this company and we developed a software that's going to run dental offices. And we're engineers. We developed this. We need somebody that can put a sales methodology together and let us grow. And I was thinking to myself at the time, this PC thing, it's going to take off. People are going to want to use these things in business and in personal life. So I thought, the hotel business is good, doesn't pay real well. My next promotion means I have to leave the city. Didn't want to do that. So I took the jump and I left the hotel industry, went to work in technology and started developing sales methodologies and hired salespeople, taught them how they should be selling to dentists. And we grew that.
Dentists are great people. Dentists are great.
Oh, very
great
nice.
people
But
to work with.
They don't ever want to meet with you. What they want is they want to be in someone's mouth because that's where they make their money. So we developed a plan to, and I learned that very quickly with my salespeople and myself in the field. So I learned that the people that called on dentists to sell them chairs and equipment and that sort of thing, why don't we use them, hire them, pay them a commission, and they would go in and say, hey, I've got this new chair, and oh, by the way, there's a software product, and we bundled it, so they bought the hardware and the software. This is long before the internet, and we became the largest dental office software company in the Northeast. We had a liquidity event. We were bought out by Delta Dental, and that was the start of my career in software. And I've worked for many different companies over the years, selling everything from computer-aided design systems to document management. I went to work for Salesforce to sell their customer relationship management, and Adobe on their marketing product side, and had a very, very good career selling enterprise. As it turned out, graduated into selling enterprise. So I handled Salesforce and Adobe's largest customers across the world, and so a very successful career.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, in that industry in software industry, there's a lot of competition. Um, I've noticed I know nothing about software, and I know a bunch of people that are in there, and they're trying to get the next new thing. What did you do? I mean, you knocked it out of the park. You went from the dental office, and then Delta bought you out, and then you went to Salesforce. We used Salesforce for a little while, and you went to Adobe, which everybody knows about.
Yeah. So,
What set you apart from everybody else that was doing the same thing you were doing?
um, well, I'd have to say it's serving the customer's needs. Just like if had several vice president sales operations type of positions, and I never looked at myself as the boss. I looked at myself as a team member, and I was there to service the team that was out selling, right? And I took that same approach with the people I was calling on when I was selling them something. And so it gets back to my fencing days where I talk about always being prepared, understanding what their needs are, how what you have is going to benefit them, how it's going to financially benefit them from a return on
Hmm.
investment standpoint. And then also the other side of it, understanding what your competition has, because in competition, whether it be fencing or running, I beat people that were better than me, and it was because I was better prepared and wanted it more, and was able to adapt on the run. And in business, same thing happens. I know I may have a competition, and then sometimes I did have competition that if I really looked at their product, it was better or it was cheaper. So I had to overcome those hurdles so that the decision was, well, we can't make any other choice. We have to spend more, or we have to buy this and it'll develop into our needs because we don't have the longevity with this other company. And I had to make that differentiation, and that I was very, very good at.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's what sets most people apart. Is you have a certain skill set and you work with your skill set. You learned it from competing professionally. So that's what I call it, the competitive edge in business. And a lot of people don't understand it, but I think me and you kind of fall under that. We understand the competitive edge because we don't like to lose.
No, no one likes to lose.
No one does, but a
The only
competitive
thing
person really doesn't like it.
the only thing you get from losing is, and you have to turn that around, is you get the experience. And as long as you understand why you lost, you can turn that around the next time and use that as a chip for the next win. And that gets stronger. So when now you hold more chips when you go into the meeting.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I won a few U.S. Opens, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's great, that's great." I'm like, "But you don't understand something. I didn't learn anything on that event that I won. I didn't learn anything. I beat everybody. When you're in second place, why did that guy beat me? Well, he had more passion, he had more drive, he had more chi energy, he had whatever I didn't have on my break. I learned something from second pass, but on the first place, there's really nothing to learn. That's what hurt me the most. I think the only thing I learned on the first one is you can't. The only thing I learned on the first one is you can't do what you did this year next year because everybody's gunning for beating you last year. So you have to beat yourself last year. And I learned that on the first one, and everything else is just it's a little bit different.
Well,
I
I love that challenge of winning a competition and coming back as a defending champion, and people are going to be after you. And I always thought that's a really good thing.
It's a drive, isn't it? Isn't that your drive?
Let them give it their all,
Right.
because they're gonna overextend, and I'm gonna take advantage of that, and I'm gonna gain 2, 3 touches in the bout just because he thinks I've got to win this. I've got to beat him because he won it before, and I have to prove that I'm better. No, you don't. You don't have to prove that you're better. You just you just always want to be better than ever you thought you could be.
Right.
You don't have
Better
to
than
be
you
better.
last
You
year.
don't have to
Like
be
I said,
better
better
than
than
your
you last
competition.
year. Yeah, better than you
never
last year.
thought. No, better than you ever thought you could be.
Right.
The bar I can reach, I think I can get there. So I'm going to go there. I want to make sure that I've stepped it up a level higher. You know, when in one of the Olympic trials, there were a series of Olympic trials where he gained points to make the '84 Los Angeles Olympic team was held in Chicago, and I had made the gold medal. I had made the gold medal bout, and it was against a guy named Michael Marks. So Michael Marks, in my time of fencing, was probably one of the best, most coordinated, toughest fencers in the country. He had won 3 or 4 national championships. He was on the '80 Olympic team, just and a very, very nice guy, by the way. But he was a formidable opponent and very, very hard to beat. And an artist named Leroy Neiman, who's known for his sports paintings, came to watch the competition and announced that he had a fencing scene that he had painted for the '76 Olympic Games. And he said he was going to give that to the winner. And which was an announcement they made just before the gold medal match started. And a friend of mine walked up to me and said, "Hey, Michael, Mike Marks just called his mom and said he's bringing home the Leroy Neiman." And I went, "What?" She said, "Yeah, he called his mom and said, just want to let you know that he already knows he's going to win." And I went, "Oh, thank you." And that raised my level of concentration. How dare he come on the strip already thinking. I beat him 10-2.
Nice.
And the Leroy Neiman hangs on my wall over here.
Nice.
So,
nice. That is awesome.
You know, you got to be able to be at 100% all the time if you want to succeed.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I love that you told me the story earlier. That's a great story. I love that. You know, when someone says something so ridiculous, you're like, that's going to drive me. That's going to drive me to put him into the ground.
Like the guy next to you saying, "I hold the record." Well,
he did. He was being honest. He wasn't being facetious.
Absolutely.
But that gave me the motivation and the drive that I can beat him while he's standing there. And I got a video of it afterwards, and he did it graciously. He went over and looked at my pile, looked that I won, and he shook my hand. I love that the professionalism.
You know, some of my best friends were my biggest competitors. You know, when you're on the strip, there's nothing I want more than to hurt you and to kill you and to win the bout. We step off, we go to dinner, have friends,
yes.
We're total friends. It's a total separation there.
It sounds insane to talk when you tell that to people, you know, like, you know, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And as soon as the match is over, we're outside having a beer, relaxing. And you know, it looks crazy. It really does. You're my worst enemy until the tournament's over. Then you're my best friend. I don't know how to explain that. Someone listening to us right now, you know, your preparedness before you get into any meeting, and they want to get better at that. And you know, what would you suggest to them? What would you tell them to do to be like you?
Well, I think that it's a lot easier today because there's the internet. There's things, you know, that there's resources everywhere for you. You know, it used to really be difficult. I'd have to go in, meet with executive assistants, walk around the hallways if I could get into the building and talk with people and get them to open up to me. Now you can, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that now, but now you can go on LinkedIn, learn all about the different people that are going to be in the meeting. So, and you need to understand what benefit your product is bringing to them and what the cost of that benefit is. And if you don't have that fundamental baseline down, right, now you're just selling pens, right? How many do you want? They come in green and blue. So you have to differentiate yourself in that. And the only way to differentiate yourself is by knowing what you have that creates a gap in what your competitor has.
And knowing your know yourself as you know your opponent as you know yourself. You need not fear 100 battles. So you told me earlier that you'd check out their software and you said it could be better. but I need to know that before I go into the meeting.
Oh, sure. And when I'm at a trade show,
Mhm.
right, I walk over to their booth. I'll ask for a demo.
Oh, there you go.
Talk to their salespeople and get to know them. You know, when I was with Salesforce, we beat Oracle in a very, very large deal, multi-million-dollar deal. And when we showed up for the meeting, we were waiting in the lobby, and the guys from Oracle had just finished their presentation, and they were walking out. And they gave us, the little dagger stare as they walked out, kind of laughing.
With a smile on their face. Hey, guys,
We've
good
got
luck.
this one, yeah. And so one of them I recognized from knowing for years. So I walked over before we went in. And I said, I don't want you to say anything now, but I'll tell you what, are you in town tonight? He goes, yeah, we don't leave until tomorrow. So let's have dinner tonight. And he said,
Oh, there you go.
I don't think that's right. I said, sure it is. Just two guys having dinner. Let's have dinner. So he said, okay. So we went and did our presentation, right? And we clearly thought we had the win. We left, and I went to dinner with him that night. And I asked him, I said, do you want to talk a little bit about the meeting? He said, no, I really don't, because
get a couple beers in them.
To be honest, we know we won. And I said, okay, all right. So we just had a nice talk about his family and my family and shook hands and went off. And 2 days later, we were awarded the win. He gave me a call and he was like, what happened? And so I listed to him why we won. And for his benefit, I said, why not? We're, because every deal is going to be different. And maybe someday he'll help me. And as a matter of fact, about 4 years later, when I was working with Adobe, we hired him.
Nice.
So
he did help you. He helped you out for years then, right?
Yeah, he's a good sales guy.
Right. Awesome. That's great. So another question for you is, what is the biggest challenge that you've overcome? This is a tough one for most people. There's in business and life, what's the biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge I ever overcome, well, should I do it in athletics or in business, or one of both? If you got
I give you the one in both, because you got some great stories. So
I was running in a half marathon in Chicago, and it was a very, very hot day, and the race went off just fine at like 7 a.m, but by 7:45, 8 o'clock, the humidity was in the 90%, and it was 85 degrees, which for a distance runner is hell. And I'm trying to hold a pace, and I sweat profusely. So I was losing everything very quickly. And
your electrolytes, water, yep.
Yeah. And they were handing out sponges as you ran so I could pour water on my head. And I decided the best thing to do, I took a couple ice sponges, put them under my hat. And every time, so now instead of trying to slow down and pick one up, I just push on my head. It would give me a little bit of ice, and that's
there you go.
And my whole body was telling me to shut down and to slow down. And I knew I was on a very good pace, running a pace enough to win my division. And so I just kept telling myself, if you can make it to the next mile marker, then you'll be okay. And then I stopped being able to concentrate on the mile markers. So I looked at the runner in front of me. It didn't really matter who it was. And I did what's called fishing. I cast a fake line out to him and I slowly reeled him in. So every just a little bit faster so I could catch up with him. And that brought me through the end of the race. And when I finished, like 3 minutes behind me, they black flagged the race and shut it down because it was just too dangerous and too hot. And I won my division. And I think what kept me going was convincing myself, just take that one extra step, just catch that one extra guy. And I think that motivates you to push yourself farther than you think you're capable of.
The little incremental goals as you're going through it. A little more, try just one more. And that is huge.
And
That is huge.
in business, I think the biggest challenge, quite frankly, was an internal challenge, fighting my own company for me to win a deal. When I was with Adobe, I was working 13, 14 months on a deal, and it was a game changer for the company I was selling to. And certainly for me, it was maybe 150% more than my whole quota for the year. So there was a lot there. And we had a couple of meetings that didn't go as well as I thought. And they were talking about putting it in that it was only going to happen if it was in next year's budget. So I went hunting to try to find ways that other departments could give up money to get budget money moved over to fund this deal. And my company said, you got other deals. We want you to, have not one big deal, but several deals during the year. We want you to walk away from this one. It's just not going to happen. Don't put all that effort in. And I said, I put too much into this, and I know I can win this, and I've got the right people lined up. And they kept insisting no, particularly my manager, who was not a very supportive manager. And they came again and said, you've got 1 week and we're going to pull you from this. And I said, well, you'll have to fire me. So I orchestrated a call between my skip manager, so the manager above my manager, with my champion at this company in St. Louis. And he said to him, he's doing a good thing. We have a process here. And he's trying to explain that to you. No, I'm explaining it to you. Give him some time. And they reluctantly did. And I got the impression that I was going to be scarred on that from a career standpoint going forward. I kind of made that clear because they said, bringing in that other guy was bad form. And 4 days before the end of that particular quarter, I was able to get the deal in. And, then, publicly they were like, oh, he did such a great job. We supported him all the way and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, it's good to have such a great team behind you. But they absolutely had no confidence in the deal. And I felt that was on me. And it was one of the reasons why I left to go to Adobe.
Oh, that's I think I think you did well. I think you did very well. The switch over from, it was Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
There's churn in sales because it is very, very cutthroat. You have to make a number. You have to do that pretty much quarterly. If you miss your number once, there's warnings. Second time you're on a plan. Third time you're gone. So
nice.
It's a very, very high stressful job, but it has high rewards when you're successful.
Right. I agree. Sounds like things went really well for you. I think you're retired now, right?
Yes.
As you're looking forward to the future, what is your plans for the future? Sort of retirement and enjoying life and any financial things that you want to do now that you don't have anything to do?
Well, I feel I started working when I was 14 in a shoe store as a stock boy. So I've been working a very, very long time. I feel I've earned this. So one of the reasons why we wanted to get out of the cold winters or long winters and come to an area here is so we could relax and take advantage of the lake. I like the water. Take advantage of hiking, which is in the area, which we do a lot of. So, the retirement plan is, I've got what I need. I've got enough that I can take care of my kids, if needed. And so we're just enjoying life. We're traveling a lot. We're taking a 2-week trip out to do, national parks in Utah, and we've got a trip planned to Italy and to Greece. We did France last year, so want to travel and enjoy.
Nice.
And yeah, live out
Nice.
the rest of my life as happy as possible.
So, here's the part where I let everybody know that, if you want to tell your name and number and how to get in touch with you and stuff like that, so that if anybody has any questions or something like that, you want to help, that'd be great. If not, you don't have to, because you don't want to be doing this anymore. But if you'd like to, you can see if anybody can contact your email address or something.
Oh, sure. I mean, I can always be found on Facebook. Just search Michael
There you
McCahey or LinkedIn. That's the best way. As I still am in touch and I have a lot of friends who are still working and reach out to me for advice, and I talk to them through LinkedIn, and or often they give me a phone call and we'll talk. So that's the best way to reach me.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much. I can't thank you enough. That was a great interview, one of my best, and I'd love to do another one later on. So I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope you get a lot of wisdom from this guy. I'm learning from him every day. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.